Luigi Mangione, he's back in court. Mangione is accused of killing UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The judge presiding over Mangione's case says Mangione will argue a psychiatric defense in his New York State murder trial. Mangione's lawyers told the judge that they plan to show that their client killed the UnitedHealthcare CEO while suffering from a, quote, extreme emotional disturbance at the time of the occurrence. The judge also said he will unseal records of the closed-door hearing held earlier this month. Mangione's lawyers opposed that release of the transcript and other materials relating to his psychiatric defense. The lawyers insist that unsealing of the transcript from the state court hearing will harm Mangione's other trial in federal court. Mangione's New York State trial begins September 8th. His trial in federal court is scheduled for January 5, 2027. Criminal defense attorney Ken Belkin joins me. Nice to talk to you, Ken. And having been a defense attorney myself, I imagine if you and I were sitting in a bar talking, we might say that this is sort of a Hail Mary pass from his lawyers, but something we would never say in court.
Yeah, it's a very tough defense for the defense to mount. It does not have a very high historical success rate. But the key to it here is it's not your typical insanity defense. It's a defense that is, set by statute in the state of New York. And what needs to be established is that, one, he was acting under the influence of an extreme emotional disturbance that was so extreme it caused him to lose self-control and commit this crime. And that this extreme emotional disturbance has to be considered reasonable from his vantage point. Now, I think the major hurdle that's going to be nearly impossible to overcome is that he lacked self-control. There's a lot of evidence that shows a meticulous amount of planning went into the commission of this crime.
Well, usually when you think of this, and I realize it's a particular New York statute, but usually it's something that knocks down a case from a first-degree murder to like a second-degree murder. It's a act with great passion. It's you walk into the bedroom and you discover your spouse in bed with someone, and all of a sudden you blow up and you kill the person that's sitting there in the bed. But as you noted, that the problem here is that it wasn't like spontaneous. When the person walks into the bedroom and sees his or her spouse, is that you don't bring along, you don't plan with a gun, you don't have a backpack, you don't track the person for a long time. I mean, it really is explosive at the moment and unanticipated. The planning here is what I think makes this case so profoundly difficult for the defense attorney.
Yeah, as you said, this is a heat of passion defense, typical amongst, a cheating spouse scenario. Someone walks into the bedroom. Well, you know what someone doesn't walk into the bedroom with? A manifesto about his cheating spouse. And Luigi Mangione had a manifesto, allegedly, about why he was committing this crime. He also allegedly created his own silencer to suppress the sound of the gunshot. So it's a very tough defense for them to establish. And the key here is, if the jury buys it, it could mean the difference between a sentence in the range of 25 to life to a sentence that maxes out at 25 years.
All right, I don't know the New York law, so help me on this, is that why didn't he raise the insanity defense? Here in Washington, you'd have to say that you couldn't appreciate the wrongfulness of your conduct. You didn't know it was wrong to do, basically. Under New York law, why wasn't insanity, which would, if you're not guilty by reason of insanity, you completely walk away and you put him in a mental hospital. But what's the difference between what they're raising and insanity?
So with a typical insanity defense, the first prong of it is that you have to prove that the defendant has some sort of mental health disease or defect. So you really have to prove that he has a diagnosed mental health condition. I haven't seen any evidence so far that he has a diagnosed mental health condition. And the second part of it is that the mental health condition, made it impossible for the defendant to appreciate the difference between right and wrong when they committed the crime. Again, the amount of planning that went into this shows that he understood the difference between right and wrong, because he went to great lengths to conceal. And when he went on the run, he went to great lengths to conceal his whereabouts, to conceal his identity. He took a lot of, he allegedly stayed at a hostel under an assumed name in New York, and he took a bike route where there was so a lack of surveillance cameras on that route. So it seems to me he truly knew the difference between right or wrong when he allegedly committed the crime. And, you know, it's a problem. I don't think he can establish that. And it's not clear that he has a diagnosed mental health disease or defect.
Well, we used to call these cases, when they didn't look too good for the defense attorney, we used to call them slow pleas, because you sit there and watch the case just unfold, and the outcome seems rather inevitable. But we don't know. Anyway, Ken Belkin, thank you.
Thank you, Greta. Thanks for having me.
People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.